Woo boom boom. In the sound of the old steam train, a little boy with yellow skin, black hair, and black eyes sat beside the car window, staring blankly at the scenery outside, and at the same time answering the seat one after another. Opposite a little girl's various problems. "Zhang, can you do magic?" the little girl asked. "There will be some simple magic, such as some small magic for lighting," the little boy replied. "Can you demonstrate it?" The little girl looked longingly at the opposite boy. "Well, okay." The little boy took out his magic wand and waved it, liang tang. The next moment, the top of the wand glowed like a 20watt light bulb. "Wow!" The little girl showed an expression as if the cat lady saw a dried fish, and then said excitedly, "Is liang tang the spell of this magic? Can you give this magic to me?" "Miss Granger, this is just a very simple magic. You should have seen it in the book. The difference between my magic and the magic you see in the book is that the spell I use is Chinese. When you are in after school starts to learn magic, you will soon learn it," the little boy replied. In the beginning, Zhang Su and the little girl opposite each introduced themselves and learned that their name was Hermione Granger, and he was ready to ask endless questions like he is now. "Zhang, when did you start learning magic?" Hermione asked again. "When I was 6 years old," Zhang Su replied. "Don't you start learning magic after the age of 11? Before the age of 11, the magical power of the little wizard is unstable, and the use of magic will cause magical riots." Hermione asked in surprise. "This is true in Europe. In China, you must first learn to tame your magic before learning magic. When your magic is tamed, as long as you don't use it overdrawn, there will be no magic riots. I spent half a year learning to tame your magic. The magic method, and then I started to learn some simple magic," Zhang Su said. Hermione, who had this kind of operation.jpg on her face, didn't notice, and Zhang Su twitched the corners of her mouth after saying this. "I really admire the brains of ancient sages when I use magic as internal strength. Fortunately, I didn't use magic to play the 18 palms of the dragon," Zhang Su murmured again in his heart. At this moment, a round-faced boy opened the door of the carriage and asked the two if he had seen a toad. Then the enthusiastic Hermione and the little boy set foot on the road to find the toad. On the road, an encounter of fate happened. After Hermione left, Zhang Su's carriage was quiet. Why did it become like this? Why did it become like this? Zhang Su whispered to himself while leaning against the car window. 11 years ago, Zhang Su, who had been sacrificed, discovered that he woke up and became a newborn baby. He listened to the news broadcast at home and learned that he had come to China in 1980. Zhang Su is his lifetime name. Later, I learned from family chats that his father was a soldier, and he followed the army to the Southwest Front not long after he was born. My grandfather is the secretary of a pharmaceutical factory, and my mother is a technician in this pharmaceutical factory. Grandma and grandma are professors in the same university, and grandpa is a cadre transferred from the military. There is also an uncle who has just served in the Navy this year, and an uncle who drives fighter jets in the Air Force. In addition, there are some relatives who move around like cousins, 7 aunts and 8 aunts, who are distributed in the army, scientific research institutes and working hard in the business sea. After rebirth, Zhang Su didn't have any big goals. Now the family conditions are good, and he can barely become a second generation in the future. In the future, I can pick up the things I learned in the university in my previous life. It is also good to go to a baba or penguin company to be a farmer in the past 10 or 20 years. If it doesn't work, just hire people to set up a web game company. It should make a lot of money to move out mobile games such as shipmothers, nutritionists, and cards in advance. But when he was 1.5 years old, an accident disrupted Zhang Su's plan. The father, who had just returned from the front line to visit relatives that day, was telling his family about the battle on Mount Fuca not long ago. Jiangsu in the crib felt hungry and shouted a few times and found that the family was addicted to his father's battle story. Pay attention to yourself. Depressed Jiangsu looked at the apple on the desktop in the distance, while reaching out his hand to the apple and muttering "Apple fly here. Apple fly here," while expressing his own resentment. Jiangsu, who was about to growl in his stomach, suddenly noticed a surge of power in his body, and shot towards the table with his outstretched hand, and then a piece of watermelon next to the apple on the table flew towards Jiangsu like being pulled by a rope. Jiangsu was confused by the watermelon face, while his family members were ecstatic after a brief shock. Jiangsu's grandfather quickly brought a piece of white jade with intricate patterns on it. Jiangsu recognized that this jade was the one that had been on the shelf in his grandfather's study. Jiangsu's grandfather put jade bai into Jiangsu's hands for Jiangsu to grasp. Jiangsu, who was still in a daunting state, held the jade bai in both hands, and suddenly felt that the force that had just poured out of his body moved again, and poured into the jade bai through the hand holding the jade bai. I saw the usual jade birch suddenly light up, and then the light continuously flows between the jade birch lines. Seeing this scene, Jiangsu's family cheered, and took turns hugging and kissing Jiangsu. Jiangsu's grandfather has already started calling friends and relatives to announce the good news. Jiangsu didn't understand the current situation until the celebratory family banquet attended by relatives and friends the next day. This world has mana, but the level of power is not high, so don't think about destroying the world, and the destructive power can kill a large caliber cannonball. In China, people with magic power have been called alchemists since ancient times. Not everyone has mana, and those who have mana may not be able to awaken into an alchemist. Proportionally, only one person in 1,000 can become an alchemist, and those with alchemist blood have a higher proportion of awakening. In China in the 1980s, there were 1 million alchemists out of 1 billion people. Jiangsu's family is an alchemist family. Jiangsu's grandfather, grandmother, father, mother, uncle, and uncle are also alchemists. Among the other relatives of the 5 uncles, 6 uncles, 7 aunts, and 8 aunts, there are also 5 or 6 alchemists. Jiangsu also learned that people who become alchemists are smarter than ordinary people, and many people who have awakened their magic power in their early years have achieved the title of child prodigy. Therefore, Jiangsu gradually got rid of his previous practice of pretending to be tender and showed his smart and precocious side. By the age of 4, Jiangsu had already learned to read. Before elementary school, Jiangsu didn't go to kindergarten, so he stayed at home and read in his grandfather's study. Jiangsu's family is heir to the family of scholars. In addition to ordinary books in the society, there are many historical books handed down by the alchemist in his study. The more Jiangsu reads these books, the more they are broken. Since ancient times, China's alchemists have appeared in front of everyone in public. Legendary figures such as Huangdi, Yandi, and Qi Yu are regarded as the ancestors of alchemists. There is no shortage of alchemists among celebrities in the past dynasties. For example, Zhuge is the most famous one among the alchemists. The Dongfeng is really created by mana. Kong Qinji uses mana into the piano to let Sima Yi, who is also an alchemist, win the trick. Zhang Yuanxing really wants to continue his life. It is the modern history and modern history of China that further smashed Jiangsu's 3 views. Jiangsu found that the ancient history of this time and space was basically the same as the ancient history of the previous life, but since the Second Opium War, the difference between the 2 worlds appeared. From the history of ordinary people, starting from the failure of the British and French coalition to attack Beijing in 1860, and the Yuan Minjai Yuan was not robbed and burned as the starting point, to the Sino-Japanese naval battle. Deng Xishang did not die in the naval battle after hitting Shen Yoshino, and then he participated in the founding ceremony at the age of 100. During the anti-Japanese war, a series of small victories turned into big victories. In the end, a series of wrong policies did not appear after the founding of the People's Republic of China. Jiangsu felt that this was basically a traverser playing the wheel of history behind his back. When reading the history books of alchemists later, Zhang Su discovered that since 1860, the alchemists had fully and semi-openly intervened in the course of history. When the British and French coalition forces attacked Beijing, the heavy equipment and gunpowder were all destroyed by the alchemists. It was the alchemists who escorted the Zaiwan and rescued Deng Xisheng after crashing into the sinking Yoshino. The alchemists who stepped on the flying sword during the anti-Japanese war used a large amount of supplies. After the 100 treasure bags stole the Japanese army's arsenal and sent the baggage to the guerrillas and the 28th Road, Zhang Su's 3 views gave him a heavy hammer. As for the 18th alchemist stepped on the flying sword and flew over Tokyo and threw it for bombs and the like, Zhang Su said that he had begun to calm down. After reading the history books on both sides, Zhang Su felt that if there was a traverser commanding everything behind his back, then the traverser must be an alchemist like himself, and a high-status alchemist. What made Zhang Su's 3 views shattered into fine sand was the history of Western magic that Zhang Su saw later. Zhang Su felt bad when he saw that the Ollivander family began to make magic wands in 382 BC. When he saw the establishment of the Hogwarts school of witchcraft and wizardry in the 10th century, he began to tremble at a frequency of 20 Hz. Now, when he turned the history of Western magic directly to the last part, when he saw the names of Albus Dumbledore, Voldemort, and Harry Potter, he seemed to burn out. Sitting at the desk for a long time speechless. Why did it become like this? I was born again for the first time. With magic power again. 2 happy things overlap. And these 2 happy things bring me more happiness. What I got is supposed to be like a dreamlike happy time. But why would it be like this? When I finished eating, Zhang Su figured out what happened to me in Britain, thousands of miles away. Could Voldemort's ups and downs in the UK affect China? Back then, many wizards from the Western powers wanted to invade China with the armies of the Western colonists. Although the Qing dynasty was beaten in a mess, the battle in the magical world was that the alchemists pressed the sorcerers on the ground and rubbed them. Many sorcerers' wands became alchemists. Their spoils. When Voldemort was engaged in the reign of terror in Britain not long ago, many British wizards hid in Hong Kong to seek refuge. Some Death Eaters also followed to Hong Kong, but when these Death Eaters tried to make trouble, they were all beaten to the ground. After being blocked by magic power, he is still growing sugarcane on the labor camp. With the increase of age and experience, Zhang Su has discovered the difference between the Chinese alchemist class and the Western wizarding class. Unlike the almost isolated lifestyle of the Western wizarding class and ordinary people, the Chinese alchemists are almost semi-open and pure. The official media does not mention a word, but many people in the private sector understand it. The pharmaceutical factory where Grandpa Zhang Su worked, even more clearly, made Chinese patent medicines for the treatment of bruises and sprains. In fact, the pharmaceutical factory produced a simplified version of the medicine, and the Drug Supervision and Administration Department obtained the approval number of the drug and sold it to the public. Zhang Su, who has been unable to complain about this world with abnormal painting style, decided to just go one step at a time. Anyway, the country does not stipulate that alchemists cannot be code farmers. However, the accident happened to Zhang Su. Just after the Spring Festival in 1991, an invitation letter came to Zhang Su. From my grandfather, I learned that this invitation letter came from a respected senior in the Alchemist. Thousand Island Lake in the south of China, there are more than 1,000 large and small islands in the lake. The islands of Qiandao Lake have different shapes. The islands are scattered and densely distributed, and the islands are well listed. Holiday villas have been built on some islands. The old man who invited Zhang Su lived on one of the islands. On the top terrace of the villa, a grey-haired old man and a mat little boy are drinking tea together. Formations have been laid out on the terrace, and people outside cannot know what the people on the terrace are saying. Zhang Su looked at the predecessor who was in front of him with a childlike appearance and could not imagine that this was an old man in his 140s. The lifespan of an alchemist is obviously longer than that of ordinary people, but there are very few who can be so energetic at this age. The old and the young drank a round of tea without saying a word, put down the teacup. The old man stared at Jiangsu for a while, and asked, "In what year did you come here?" "Lao Zhao, what year did you come here?" Jiangsu was shocked and replied without changing his face. "Don't pretend." The old man called Lao Zhao pulled out a piece of paper from under the tea table and placed it in front of Jiangsu. "Use the mascot of the 2008 Olympic Games to contribute the mascot of the 1990 Asian Games. Who can do it?" Jiangsu did not twitch, and confessed to Zhao Lao that he came from another world in 2017. Zhao Lao also told Jiangsu that he came 7 years earlier than Jiangsu. The two each talked about some of their original world, and found that they both came from the same world. Many of Zhao Lao's memories in his previous life have been blurred, while Jiangsu still remembers a lot. Under Jiangsu's narration, Zhao Lao's memories of more than 100 years have gradually been thawed. Jiangsu talked about the service of the Liaoning in 2012, talked about the launch of the domestically made Type 001A aircraft carrier, talked about the extraordinary craftsmanship of Nansha's nature. Zhao Lao, who was a naval officer in his previous life, was happy to be like a more than 100-year-old child and returned to the house. He took out a bottle of old wine and filled himself with wine while listening to Jiangsu. After Jiangsu talked about the things that happened after Mr. Zhao crossed his life in his previous life, Mr. Zhao talked about his own story for more than 100 years. Zhao Lao was born in the 1840s, into a family of alchemists famous for divination. Lao Zhao's family has always been well known in the alchemists' arena for its impartiality and neutrality. Many of the alchemists' sects and disputes between families are willing to find Zhao's home to coordinate. During the Second Opium War, many wizards from the Western powers followed the British and French forces to land. In order to discuss how to deal with the invasion of Western wizards, the leaders of the Chinese alchemist group gathered in the Zhao family manor for a meeting to discuss countermeasures. On the day of the meeting, big men from all walks of life were sitting in the lobby of the Zhao family manor, waiting for auspicious time to begin discussions. At this time, a well-known senior joked about Mr. Zhao, who was greeting the guests, and asked him to take a divination to see what the future situation is like. Other guests also hummed together and let Daddy Zhao count as a divination. Zhao Lao, but everyone else, at the direction of the Zhao family grandfather at the time, helped him in the lobby. The divination spells passed down by the Zhao family often show some light and shadow effects when using magical divination. The result of divination is generally accurate when the blue light is emitted during divination, and the accuracy is increased when the silver light is emitted. When the golden light is emitted, it is basically 80% accurate. The appearance of the light and shadow is random. The higher the accuracy rate, the greater the burden on the person performing the operation. As far as Mr. Zhao, who had just stepped on the threshold at the time, was good, it would be good for an alchemist of his level to flash a blue light, and then he would be able to recover after sitting down for a while. Happy. The problem lies in this divination. The alchemists' history books specifically indicate the important position of this divination in history, and it is a compulsory examination for the college entrance examination. After Zhao Lao began to help him, colorful rays of light appeared on his body. According to historical records, such light and shadow only appeared 2 or 3 times in ancient times, and the accuracy of divination was 10% each time. At that time, Mr. Zhao was in a coma for 3 months after he wrote 3 articles. In the subsequent proceedings, these 3 articles became the core idea of the discussion at this time. It doesn't work if it's not the core. The legend of the colorful rays has been recorded in every ancient sect and family. Now it appears in front of you. It must be core. This meeting lasted for 3 days and 3 nights, and finally everyone reached 3 consensuses. 1. The alchemist was fully involved in the war. 2. The children of various sects and families dispatched to study abroad. 3. After the hero appears, they will be assisted together. Hearing this, Jiangsu stared at Zhao Lao firmly and said, "Zhao Lao, this is what you are doing. China is the most at risk, teach the barbarian skills to control barbarians, and 5 stars to benefit the East. These 3 sentences of China, it seems you are doing a ghost. The first one, don't think you changed the lyrics of the national anthem and I can't see it. The second one was published at that time. Article 3 has not been unearthed yet. Mr. Zhao glared at Jiangsu, and said, improving the national fortune can't be considered a trouble. I am changing the national fortune, can it be regarded as a trouble if something goes through people? Everything that happened later on, Jiangsu has figured it out. With Mr. Zhao behind the scenes, it is no wonder that the wheel of history turns so happily. After talking about his own history, Mr. Zhao asked Jiangsu a question, what do you think of the alchemist's full integration into society that I have been promoting now? Jiangsu didn't expect that Mr. Zhao would ask him this question. After 5 minutes of contemplation, he replied, I agree with this matter. The power of our alchemist is also part of the power in this world, and this power can be used properly. Greatly promote the progress of society. It is just how to prevent alchemists from becoming a privileged stratum in the society and work hard, and the international secrecy law also has an impact on us, right? These 2 points are indeed the biggest problems, but they are not unsolvable. Zhao Lao said, alchemists have existed in the private sector semi-openly for thousands of years, and full openness has broken a piece of window paper. In the past, the reason why the alchemists did not join the WTO to become masters is that the alchemists cannot be an enemy of the whole people. And now that science and technology are developed, the power of the alchemists does not pose much threat to ordinary people. In the face of nuclear, biological, and chemical weapons, the alchemists are not much stronger than ordinary people. It is a conventional weapon. The submachine gun from the opposite side of the soul extinguishing curse can give you a shuttle, and the iron armor curse cannot prevent 40 fires. After the difference in force between the 2 sides is eliminated, the remaining differences will be resolved. It's simple internationally. The International Wizarding Federation has always been a matter of the European and American magic circles. They can't control our side. Back then, the International Wizarding Federation wanted to sign an unequal treaty with the great powers and the Qing dynasty. Sign an unequal treaty. When we were stupid, we ignored them. All their paws were cut off by us. During the War of Resistance, they wanted to unite with Japan to put pressure on us. As a result, the Japanese wizards were killed. We wiped out half. After 45 years, they will basically not be with us. Their international confidentiality law for us is that the unsigned paper is the toilet paper in the toilet. Now that the US sees the benefits of doing this, it has also begun to learn from us. A while ago, the Magic Congress and the US government reached a consensus and began to gradually disclose the magic world. Other countries are also beginning to wait and see. The most stubborn thing is still in Europe. Those wizards and aristocrats are still stubborn, thinking that they are still in the Middle Ages and are still sticking to their style. The result now is that the development of magic in the world is the slowest, if not for Dumbledore. It's been eaten and wiped out long ago. Who are better than you and Dumbledore? Jiangsu subconsciously asked when he heard the familiar name. I have met, I haven't fought, when I tried each other, it was 5050. It's hard to say if I fight for life. You must know that when I was on the battlefield, I used a wand and a light machine gun. Zhao Lao replied. Jiangsu kept his mouth cramping. This style is different from Harry Potter, but it is somewhat similar to Gandalf. Have you met? When? Jiangsu asked curiously. In the past 7 years or so, a few Death Eaters came here after a wizard who fled to Hong Kong. They wanted to make trouble here, but we were all left behind. Dumbledore came to think on behalf of their Ministry of Magic. I brought them all back. I received him. At that time, the conversation broke down and we tried each other a bit. Everyone found that the fight was not worth the loss and we continued to talk. Later, he took them back with him who was dead. He spent several years in a labor reform. Put it back again, said old Zhao. Back to the topic just now. Old Zhao continued, now there is an open trend in the world of magic, but the power in Europe has been pretending to be deaf and dumb as if nothing happened. Dumbledore is actually I can't see what I'm thinking, now he personally extends an olive branch to us. Zhao Lao continued. Olive branch? What's the situation? Jiang Su asked. I just want to recruit a student from our side to study abroad. The excuse is to provide a window for communication between the two parties. The admission notice for Hogwarts has been sent over, and the name is left blank for us to fill in. Zhao Lao replied. Then you told me to come over. Jiang Su asked nervously. Calling you over is for an interview. Now that the interview has passed, I decided to let you through. Zhao Lao replied affirmatively, the candidate list of the Ministry of Education is here for me to comment. I see that your name is also in it. You are nominated. For the sake of my face, they will agree to it 10%. Wait, this matter is under the control of the Ministry of Education. Asked Jiang Su, who was not sure about the operation of the alchemist's authority. Hey, what you said, there is a game of chess across the country, you reading www.yuyuganshu.com, and our alchemists are no exception. Old Zhao replied naturally. But you should have read the book Harry Potter. You have not read it or heard of it. The next few years happen to be Voldemort's comeback and troubles. At this time, I will be too dangerous in the past. Jiang Su said. First of all, what I want to say to you is that it is better to have no books than nothing. What happened in this world, part of the information spread through the gaps in the universe to our previous universe, and it happened to match the author's brainwaves, so the author's brain hole of Harry Potter appeared in the author's mind, and then he wrote it out. The spread of information in the universe still ignores time. The time difference between you and me is only a few years. The world where we have arrived. It is more than 100 years away. Maybe there are still fellow villagers in this world that we haven't discovered. A few years later, things are passed to the author at my hometown. Who knows if this signal is distorted? The radio transmission is far away. The signal is lost. Don't expect this kind of information spread across the universe to be 100% matched. I have read the novel, and I remember it didn't say that Malfoy's father was arrested by us for labor reform. The labor pace setter in the reform through labor farm, because his performance is so good that his sentence has been reduced. Zhao Lao said, furthermore, let you be a window for communication between the two parties in the past, instead of letting you go against Voldemort in the past, and you eat melons by the side. While watching them make a fuss, nobody said you. If you are willing to make a fuss with them, I don't have a problem. I will sponsor you some small things personally to ensure that you are generally fine and at least you can save your life. Those who were caught by us before, don't be afraid that the Death Eaters who have been put back will retaliate against you. I have already spoken out. If they dare to move you, I will personally lead people to the door. We can do what the Japanese did in Wanping City back then. So Jiang Su appeared on the train to Hogwarts. The steam train is still running on the railway. Jiang Su, who leaned against the car window for a while, suddenly thought that Ka Zhongtang told Galleries Lafayette more than 10 years later that a foreigner would come to me to repair the railway in Great Britain. I wonder if the train to Hogwarts will be in the future. How about switching to high-speed rail? Not long after Hermione left the carriage, Jiang Su thought about a few jokes about Britain and adjusted his mood, and then began to sort out the belongings he carried with him. Jiang Su put the magic wand he used while studying at Hogwarts on the tabletop of the carriage. Just now, after he demonstrated Gandalf's magic with the magic wand to Hermione, he kept holding the magic wand in his hand and spinning like a pen. With a magic wand. This magic wand of Jiang Su was not bought in Ollivander's shop in Diagon Alley, England, but was modified with a standard magic wand bought by students from a spell teaching equipment store in China. Different from Ollivander's concept of the magic wand chooses the wizard, Huaxia's concept of the magic wand is tailored. According to the user's different characteristics and different occasions, using different magic wands is like wearing different ones on different occasions, same as shoes. Jiangsu's magic wand is made of 100-year-old peach wood, and the indicators of magic power are very average, and the characteristic is brother, stability. After all, it is a large-scale teaching tool. In addition to the cheap materials, for younger students, a magic wand that is easy to control and does not cause much damage is the most suitable for students to use. If Jiangsuri becomes a magic code farmer, such a magic wand will be enough for him to do housework. In order to face some of the accidents that he will face when studying abroad this time, Zhang Suchuo replaced the core of the magic wand with the nerves of the Donghai Jiao that can increase the power of magic. East Sea Jiao lives in the western Pacific region and is the source of the ancient legends of the dragon on the sea. It has thick flesh and few spines and is rich in nutrients. It has the functions of nourishing spleen, nourishing qi, warming stomach, nourishing liver, nourishing skin, nourishing qi, nourishing blood, and body building. It is suitable for people with weak bodies such as dizziness, shortness of breath, fatigue, and malnutrition. It is especially suitable for people with weak spleen and stomach, indigestion, and dry skin. Common methods are stewed, steamed, deep-fried, steamed, braised, and can also be used in dry pot and hot pot. Now it has almost been eaten into 3 protected animals. Jiangsu's wand is about 20 centimeters long, which is almost 8 inches long in the imperial system. Compared with the common wand in Europe, it is like a chopstick. In fact, Jiangsu also felt that his wand could be used as chopsticks when necessary. Put the magic wand away, Jiangsu took out a new magic wand cover from the suitcase. This magic wand set was designed by Jiangsu himself and invited his grandfather to make it. Unlike ordinary wand covers, this wand cover refers to the design of the hidden blade in Assassin's Creed. The wand cover is no longer pinned to the waist and fixed under the forearm. Just input a little magic power to eject the wand inside. Come. Moreover, there is a flying curse that matches the wand is added to the wand cover. After entering the magic power to start the spell, you can call your wand within 50 meters, and you can automatically retract the wand into the wand cover. This design avoids the following troubles. 1. Don't be afraid to accidentally forget the wand where you can't find the wand, or if you fall under the bed, you have to take it out slowly. 2. When fighting with the enemy, the wand will not fall. I tried my best to reach for the wand, but the enemy stepped on the claw. 3. There will be no thank you Jean guards for coming to rescue when the magic wand is collected. After putting on the new magic wand cover, Jiangsu took the robe prescribed by Hogwarts out of the suitcase as soon as he stretched out his hand to retract the wand into the cover. Is meaningless. This robe has also been modified. Not only is it warm in winter and cool in summer, it is ventilated and breathable, but it is also dust-proof, fireproof, waterproof, mildew, and corrosion-proof. In addition, this robe can also be loaded with some expansion functions. This robe is considered a piece of equipment in the school. Don't you see that Professor Snape's robe is not fireproof? Hermione can set his wand on fire as a first-year student. Fortunately, this is a magical world. It is as easy to put out a fire as it is to fire a fire, otherwise Professor Snape will be admitted to the intensive care unit with extensive burns all over his body. At this time, there was a sound of running outside the car. Jiangsu looked out and saw 3 people running by in the corridor who looked like new students. Jiangsu ignored them, looked at the sky and felt that the car was about to arrive at the station, so he changed his robe. Jiangsu is not used to wearing such a robe, it feels like wearing a skirt. What's even more unaccustomed is that some people don't wear underpants under their robes, and the result is that they are ugly in public when they are played by their rivals. With the lessons learned from Professor Snape, who did not want to be named, Jiangsu would not make such a mistake. After putting on his robe, Jiangsu put the treasure bag he carried with him in a pocket that he could easily reach, and then put the suitcase back on the shelf. The 100 treasure bag is the collective name for the bags that cast the space expansion spell. Jiangsu's 100 treasure bag was given by Mr. Zhao. The restrictions placed on it are only available to Jiangsu. After all, some of the things that Mr. Zhao prepared for Jiangsu look like it's better not to be discovered by others if the little things that are useful and seemingly unusable. As soon as Jiangsu put the suitcase in, Hermione returned to the carriage. "Miss Granger, the train is coming to the station, hurry up and put on the robe." After Jiangsu finished speaking, he walked out of the car and closed the door. The train stopped at the station, and the passengers got off one after another. The passengers who got off the bus pushed and shoved, rushing to the door. When he got down to a platform with no lights, Jiangsu heard the shout of first-year students. "First-year students, come here." Looking along the voice, I saw a huge figure standing there holding a lamp, slightly synchronized with the Statue of Liberty. Rubber Hagrid, a hybrid giant, the key-keeper of Hogwarts, the keeper of the Forbidden Forest, and one of Dumbledore's henchmen. He is a good person, but he is very different from ordinary people in the 3 views on magical animals. "Come on, come with me, are there any first-year students? Watch out for your feet, okay? First-year students, come with me." In Hagrid's shouts, a group of freshmen followed Hagrid along a steep and narrow path. The path went downhill. After Hagrid took the little wizards to relieve the Hogwarts founders revisiting the Long March, the freshmen disembarked one after another. When Jiangsu got off the boat, he found a toad lying on the boat. After thinking about it, he picked it up and walked to the round-faced boy on the train looking for toads. "Classmate, did you drop this toad?" During the thank you students along the Navally Road, Jiangsu and the freshmen climbed up a tunnel in the rock under the light of Hager's lantern, and finally reached a flat and wet grassland in the shadow of the castle. Everyone walked up a section of stone steps, and in front of a huge oak door, Hagrid raised a huge fist and knocked 3 times on the castle gate. The door opened immediately. A tall, dark-haired witch in an emerald green robe stood in front of the gate. Professor McGonagall appeared in front of the freshmen with a serious expression. Her powerful aura made the freshmen quiet. "First-year freshman, Professor McGonagall," Hagrid said. "Thank you, Hagrid. Let me pick you up here," Professor McGonagall said to Hagrid. Professor McGonagall opened the door wide. The foyer is several hundred square meters. The stone wall is surrounded by flaming torches. The ceiling is so high that it is almost invisible. On the front is a luxurious marble staircase that leads directly to the upper floor. The freshmen followed Professor McGonagall along the stone-paved floor. From the door on the right, the buzzing voices of students from other classes in the school must have arrived. Professor McGonagall took the first-year freshmen to a small empty room at the other end of the hall. Everyone rushed in, rubbing their backs and squeezing together, staring nervously at everything around them. "Welcome to Hogwarts," Professor McGonagall said. "The opening banquet is about to begin, but before you go to the restaurant, you must first determine which college you enter. The classification is one item. A very important ceremony, because during your stay at school, the college is like your home at Hogwarts. You have to take classes with other students in the college, stay together in the college dormitory, and spend time together in the college's common room. After school time, the names of the 4 academies are Gryffindor, Hufflepuff, Ravenclaw, and Slytherin. Each academy has its own glorious history and has cultivated outstanding wizards and wizards. You are in Huo during Hogwarts' studies. Your outstanding performance will earn your college points, and any violations will deduct your college points. At the end of the year, the college with the highest score will receive the college cup, which is very high. The honor. I hope you can win honor for the college no matter which college you are assigned to. In a few minutes, the branching ceremony will be held in front of the teachers and students of the whole school. I suggest you organize yourself and be more energetic while you wait. When there is ready, I will come to pick you up. Please keep it up while waiting. Be quiet." Professor McGonagall left the room after speaking. The surrounding freshmen immediately began to tidy up their appearance, wipe their faces, tidy their robes, and comb their hair with their hands. Jiangsu took out a tissue from the treasure bag and wiped his face, then threw it back into the treasure bag, and then took out a comb to comb his hair neatly. The head can be broken and the blood can flow, but the hairstyle should not be messy. How can they accurately assign us to which college? A freshman behind Jiangsu asked another freshman beside him. Jiangsu turned around and saw that the red-haired freshman he was asked said to the freshman with glasses beside him, "I think it always passes a test." Fred said it hurts us a lot. But I think he was joking. Jiangsu accepted Ron's words with a serious face, "Don't worry, it won't be dangerous. At least I've never heard of freshmen losing their lives at the sorting ceremony, haven't they? And the medical level of the Hogwarts hospital is very high. Yes, it is second only to the St. Mungo's Hospital for magical injuries. Even if your hands and feet are broken, you can recover. So there is nothing to worry about, right?" Jiangsu's voice was not small, Ron and the surrounding freshmen could hear them clearly, and then all the freshmen began to tremble at a frequency of 10 Hz. At this moment, there were a few loud screams from the crowd, and the trembling unidentified freshman joined the screaming ranks. Jiangsu, who received the sonic attack, rubbed his ears, followed everyone's gaze, and saw about 20 ghosts floating above the room. These pearly white, translucent ghosts, Jiangsu, have also seen many in China. They usually wander around in their own territories and do nothing bad. They just look around and then spread gossip and do bad things. All of the ghosts have been cleaned up. The alchemists developed them into Chaoyang district masses, and they reported to the police when they found illegal cases such as thief robbery. Therefore, thieves in residential areas with ghosts have basically disappeared. Half of the thieves who dared to steal things in these places were caught as soon as they started, and the other half surrendered with a psychological shadow of 200 to 300 square meters. Therefore, China's Zhongyuan festival has also become an important festival. Professor McGonagall is back. The ghosts ran away right away. Now, in a single row, Professor McGonagall said to the freshman, "Follow me." The freshman walked out of the room, walked through the foyer, and passed a double opening door at the back to enter the luxurious dining room. Muggle-born little wizards could not have imagined that there would be such a magical, beautiful, and magnificent place. The students from other classes in the college have all been sitting around 4 long tables. Above the tables, thousands of candles floating in the air illuminate the dining room. On the 4 tables were glittering gold plates and goblets. There is another long table on the top table of the restaurant. UU reading www.yuyugonshu.com is the seat of teachers. The candle light flickered, and hundreds of faces staring at them looked like pale lanterns. The ghosts were also mingled with the students, shining dimly in silver. The freshman looked up and saw the velvety black ceiling glittering with stars. It's hard to believe that there is a ceiling over there, and it's hard to believe that the roof of the restaurant is not open. Jiangsu heard Hermione next to him whisper, "Spells have been cast here. It looks like the sky outside. I read about it in Hogwarts, a school history." After a while, Professor McGonagall prepared the sorting hat. After the sorting hat finished singing this year's song, Professor McGonagall walked a few steps forward, holding a roll of parchment in his hand, and said to the new students, "Whoever I call the name now, put on the hat and sit down. On the stool, wait for the branch." The results of the branching house are no different from what Jiangsu remembered. Those who should go to Gryffindor should go to Gryffindor, and those who should go to Slytherin should go to Slytherin. Jiangsu is the last freshman to wear a sorting hat. "Big brother, have you eaten?" The sorting hat asked Jiangsu in Chinese. "No, you can eat it only when you are finished." Jiangsu replied in Chinese. "Sorry, I can speak the sentence just now in Chinese." The sorting hat said in English. "Jiangsu. Ravenclaw." After finishing the conversation with Jiangsu, the sorting hat shouted. The farthest dining table on the left burst into cheers again. Jiangsu looked calm at this time, and it didn't matter to him which college he was assigned to. Jiangsu stood up and took off the sorting hat and put it back on the chair. When he lifted up, he found Dumbledore looking at him. Jiangsu bowed slightly to Dumbledore, and Dumbledore responded with a smile. Jiangsu came to Ravenclaw's long table and was warmly welcomed by the students. At this time, Jiangsu saw an extremely cute female student at the long table waving to him, motioning to sit next to her. Jiangsu sat next to the female classmate and heard her say to herself in Chinese, "Xiaosu, welcome to join Ravenclaw. If you have anything to do in the future, please come to your aunt." Looking at the cute girl in front of him who spoke with herself in an old-fashioned tone, "Let's talk," Jiangsu felt the malice of the will of the universe again. Jiangsu, a classmate who calls himself Jiangsu's aunt, knew her. Jiangsu also saw her in the novel when he was reading a novel in his previous life. She is Chu Zhang. After Zhao Lao used the colorful Gao language to change the national movement, a large number of sects and family children responded to the call of learning from the barbarians to control barbarians and went to Western countries to learn advanced technology. In the past 100 years, tens of thousands of children have appeared in Western universities and major factories, and many of the ancestors of Jiangsu's family have also studied abroad at this time. Later, many children returned from their studies and devoted themselves to the cause of national liberation and national construction, composing an epic hymn. In addition, some people stayed in the local area and started sha snacks and ju duck necks. The ancestor of Zhang Chu's family was one of them. After the signing of the joint statement on the Hong Kong issue in 1984, relations between the two countries have recovered, and many descendants of the children who stayed there have returned to the country to recognize their ancestors. In 1985, after Zhang Chu's father got in touch with Jiangsu's family, he returned to his roots with the remains of his ancestors. Jiangsu and Zhang Chu met at this time. After the people continued their genealogy, they found that Zhang Chu was a generation older than Jiangsu, so the young lady Zhang Sugong Nu became a little aunt, and Zhang Chu learned the attitude of an elder to talk to Jiangsu. Now the two are grown up and sensible, but the habit they formed during the time they got together can't be changed for a while. This kind of distant relationship is also very common in Hogwarts. The common intermarriage between wizard families makes students from wizard families more or less related. Harry Potter, Ron Weasley, and Draco Malfoy can be considered relatives. After Dumbledore's stupid cry nose residue screw, the empty dinner plate in front of the students was suddenly filled with roast beef, grilled chicken, pork chops, lamb chops, sausages, steaks, boiled potatoes, grilled potatoes, potato chips, Yorkshire pudding, pea sprouts, carrots, gravy, ketchup and mint hard candies. In all fairness, the British aristocracy during the Empire era still had a wealth of dishes, but after the Empire's sunset, the British cuisine without the lavishness of the past has become a hero, looking up at the stars to dominate. Jiangsu stopped eating 80% of his fill, and ate a piece of jelly for dessert after the meal. In this school lacking extracurricular activities, Jiangsu doesn't want to be a 200-jin child. After the dinner, Dumbledore read out a lot of notes. After singing the school song painfully, Jiangsu and other freshmen went to the door of the common room under the leadership of Prefect Pinello Crivart. The Ravenclaw common room is at the top of a tower of the castle. There is an eagle-shaped bronze knocker on the door that just asked questions. You can only enter the door after answering the questions it asked. In front of the gate, Pinello Crivart said to the freshmen, "Our common room entrance. When you knock on the door, Eagle Ring will ask you questions. If you can answer correctly, you will be allowed to enter." Pinello Crivart finished speaking and knocked on the door. Bronze Eagle Knocker, what is the worst weather for the rot sand mice? Pinello Cravat, when I train scat sand dogs. The door to the Ravenclaw common room opened, and Pinello Crivart led the freshman into the common room. When he entered the door, Jiangsu was thinking whether to teach the door knocker to ride a monkey on the tree, and a monkey underground. How many monkeys? Or steps to put the elephant in the refrigerator. Ravenclaw's common room is a large round room with elegant arched windows on the wall, with blue and bronze silk hanging. Ravenclaw students can see the beauty outside from the windows during the day. Scenery. The ceiling is a dome with stars adorned with stars, and the dark blue carpet below is also adorned with stars. There are tables, chairs, bookshelves, and a white marble bust of Rowena Ravenclaw in the niche opposite the door. A door beside the statue leads to the dormitory above. Pinello Crivard is saying the prefect's welcome to the freshmen at this moment. Pre-warning for the number of words in the original text copied ahead. Congratulations to you all. I am Prefect Pinello Crivard, and I am very happy to welcome you to Ravenclaw Academy. Our emblem is an eagle, soaring high above the pinnacle that no one can reach. The colors are sky blue and bronze. Our common room is located in Raven. The top of Lotta is hidden behind a door with a magic knocker. Through the arched windows of the circular common room, you can have a panoramic view of the Hogwarts campus, the Great Lakes, the Forbidden Forest, the Quidditch Stadium, and greenhouse. Other colleges are not lucky enough to enjoy this view. I have no intention of exaggerating. This is the place where the smartest witches and wizards live. Like our founder, Rowena Ravenclaw, we regard learning as our primary ability. We don't need to set up hidden academies like other academies. The entrance to the common room. Our common room door is located at the top of a long and curved staircase. It has no handles and has a magical eagle-shaped bronze door knocker. When you knock on the door, the eagle ring will ask you questions. If you can answer correctly, you will be allowed in. For nearly 1,000 years, no one except Ravenclaw could pass this simple barrier. Some first-year freshmen are afraid of eagle ring's questions. Don't worry. Ravenclaw is good at learning, and you will soon learn to enjoy the challenge of eagle ring setting. 20 people stood at the door of the common room, trying to answer the day's questions together. It's not uncommon. This is a great opportunity to meet other Ravenclaw students, and you can learn from them. But when you forget Quidditch sportswear and need to rush in and out, you will find it a bit annoying. Therefore, it is recommended that you check your school bag again and again before leaving Ravenclaw Tower. Ravenclaw has another cool element. Our people are very ego. Some people even call them weird. But geniuses are usually out of step with ordinary people. Unlike some colleges, we think you can wear whatever clothes you like, believe in whatever you want, and say whatever you like. We will not dislike alternative people, on the contrary, we admire them. Speaking of weirdness, you will like our dean, Professor Felius Flitwick. People often underestimate him because he is really short, his voice is very sharp, but he is the best living and most knowledgeable mantra professor in the world. His office door is always open to any Ravenclaw who has problems. If you are unhappy, he will release those delicious pocket cakes hidden in the tin can of the desk drawer and let them dance in front of you. In fact, you can pretend to be unhappy so that you can see the cakes dancing cowboy dance. It is really worth a visit. Test. Ravenclaw has a glorious history. Most of the great wizard inventors and innovators are from our academy, including Perpetua, the inventor of the moon mirror, Laverned Montmorency, the great love potion pioneer, Ignatia Wildsmith, and Flo Fans. Inventor. Famous Ravenclaw ministers of magic include Millicent Bagnold. He happened to be on duty the night Harry Potter escaped from the curse of the Dark Lord. He used his own words to defend the celebration of wizards across the UK. I insist celebrations are our inalienable power. And Minister Lorcan. He is a very clever wizard, but he prefers to draw smoke from the tip of his wand to communicate with people. Of course, I said that we produce weird people. In fact, we still turn to magic. The world contributed to the weird Uric who wears jellyfish as a hat. He is a classic punchline in many wizard jokes. As for our relationship with the other 3 academies, you have probably heard of Slytherin. They are not all bad guys, but you should be vigilant before getting to know them. Their long-term academy tradition is to win at any cost, therefore, please pay attention, especially in Quidditch competitions and exams. Gryffindors are not bad. If I have any opinion on them, Gryffindor likes to show off too much. They are also tolerant of aliens. It's much worse than us. The fact is that they even joke about some people who are interested in floating, or about the magical function of the mountain monster egg or egg divination. This is a method of using eggs to divination. Ravenclaw, who is curious. Gryffindor does not have our thirst for knowledge, and for us, if you are willing to sit in the corner of the common room all day and night and knock eggs and record your predictions based on the different landing methods of the egg yolk, it's not a problem at all, and you're likely to find someone willing to help you. As for Hufflepuffs, no one would say that they are not friendly people. They can be said to be the friendliest group of people in the school. When you encounter competition in the exam, you don't have to worry about them too much. I think that's all. Oh, yes, the ghost of our college is Ms. Grey. Others think she never talks, but she will talk to Ravenclaw. She is the daughter of the eagle ancestor, and she is very beautiful. Madam, it is said that there is something with Barrow the Blood. She is especially useful when you are lost or can't find anything. I'm sure you will have a good night. Our dormitory is in the turret next to the main tower. Our four-legged bed is covered with sky blue silk quilt, and the sound of the wind blowing in front of the window makes people feel very comfortable. I will say it again, congratulations on being part of the smartest, most agile, and funniest Hogwarts. After the prefect's welcome speech, a group of freshmen began to enter the dormitory, looking for their berths. The door of the dormitory was hung with freshmen's name tags. The freshmen who saw their names happily pushed in and met their new roommates. Jiangsu walked to the last dormitory and found that the previous dormitory happened to be fully occupied, and he occupied a dormitory alone. Was originally able to live in a dormitory with 4 or 5 people, but now there is only one bed and a set of desks placed near the window. The corners of the beds and desks have Jiangsu's name affixed to them. The timetable for the next day is on the desk. Jiangsu checked several suitcases under the bed, and found that they had all been moved in, and then checked the seal on the suitcases, and there was no trace of being touched. Just as Jiangsu took the textbook out of the suitcase and put it on the desk, there was a knock on the door. Jiangsu opened the door and found 3 little wizards standing outside the door. "Hello, I'm Anthony Goldstein, these 2 are Terry Bout and Michael Kona." The little wizard standing in the middle introduced himself to Jiangsu. "Wizard. Hello, this is Jiangsu. My last name is Zhang." Jiangsu introduced himself. He doesn't like people calling himself Su Zhang in the Western way, so he will indicate this every time he introduces himself. "You are welcome to be guests, but you see, my dormitory is now too empty to receive guests." After Jiangsu introduced himself, he turned sideways and let the 3 little wizards at the door see the empty dormitory behind him. "Set up a 7-star stove, cook 3 rivers in a copper pot, set a table of 8 immortals, and entertain the 16 parties. All guests are coming. Yu reading www.yuyuganshu.com for the classmates who come to visit. Jiangsu is not the kind of person who arrogantly refuses others thousands of miles away. He has many friends and multiple paths when he goes out, so there is no need to make himself enemies on all sides. The kind of arrogant anger at each other's words is either stupid, or like Draco Malfoy to Harry Potter, who loves you and can't hold back your face, or it was the multi-year rivalry between Lucius Malfoy and Arthur Weasley, or the discrimination that Draco Malfoy had against Hermione Granger. Anthony Goldstein looked at Jiangsu's dormitory and said to him, "We saw the nameplate on your door and found that you live alone. If you think you need it, you can apply to move to our dormitory with Professor Flitwick. Live together." Terry Bout also said, "Yes, we have discussed it, we have enough dormitory space, you can come and live together." "Thank you, but I have a better idea. Please come in." Jiangsu invited the 3 little wizards into the dormitory. Jiangsu came to the bed and waved his hand to hold the ejected wand. This hand made the three little wizards behind him shine. Jiangsu waved his magic wand, and a large box under the bed slid out, and then clicked on the box a few more times, and the box opened automatically. Jiangsu pointed to the book in the box and said, "This is my private collection of books. I don't mind sharing it with everyone. Now I plan to apply to the school to transform the empty space in the dormitory into a small reading room. What do you have?" "Good opinion." Anthony Goldstein was born in a wizarding family. Knowing what books represent in the wizarding world, all three friends were shocked for a while. After sent away the three bewildered classmates, Jiangsu sorted out his textbooks and luggage, and then got into the bed. Campus life has officially started. As a freshman in the first year, Jiangsu will study the courses of Transfiguration, Spells, Potions, History of Magic, Defense against the Dark Arts, Astronomy, Herbalism, and Flying. Jiangsu, who had no shortcuts in learning, quickly plunged into intense learning. The first problem the freshman encountered in class was the stairs at Hogwarts. There are a total of 142 stairs at Hogwarts. Some of them are wide and big, some are narrow and small, and swaying, some lead to different places every Friday, some of them will suddenly disappear when a step is halfway up. You have to remember where it is. Should skip over. In addition, there are many doors here. If you ask them to open them bluntly, or poke them in the right place, they will not open the doors for you. Some doors are not real doors at all, but just a block. The sturdy wall of the door. It is not easy to remember which things are and where, because everything seems to be constantly moving. These stairs reminded Jiangsu of the time he played the maze in his previous life, and at the same time he complained in his heart that Hogwarts was so poor that he couldn't afford a street sign. The second problem encountered by freshmen in class is Pippi. Peppies who like pranks always like to play tricks on students who rush to class, such as throwing things at you, tripping your feet with things, and attacking students suddenly. But after the second day of school this semester, the students are no longer bothered by Pippi pranks. Pippi threw students in the hallway with a handful of chalk heads that day. When two chalk heads flew towards Jiangsu, Jiangsu waved his magic wand and the chalk heads bounced off the wall next to him. Pippi saw that a student dared to rebel against him, and seemed to feel offended, so he threw all the chalk heads at Jiangsu. Jiangsu, who was rushing to the curse class, was angered by Pippi. First, he swiped his wand with a gust of wind to blow away the chalk head, then took out a piece of talisman paper folded into a triangle from the treasure bag, and input after a bit of magic power, he threw it at Pippi. Talisman just left Jiangsu's hand and turned into a white light to hit Pippi Ghost, and Pippi Ghost flew upside down like being hit by the Harmony train Hedon. Afterwards, according to Nick, who was almost headless, Pippi Ghost flew over half of Hogwarts Castle, then hit on the top of a tower shivering for a week. Since then, Pippi will never dare to play pranks on students anymore. After this incident, Jiangsu became famous for a while. He didn't see the rumors from the students who Jiangsu took out the talisman. With a wave of his hand, he beat the lawless Pippi, who can be called a Hogwarts tyrant. Jiangsu knew that the ghost-expelling talisman he took out that day was exactly the nemesis of ghosts like Pippi. Ghosts can only appear in school history. It seems that the management of the school is tired of Pippi Ghost who has been destroying it all the time. Afterwards, no professor came to Jiangsu because of this incident. Another impact of this incident is that Jiangsu gained the friendship of the administrator Argus Filch. The school life continues in this way, full of tension and accidents. In the curse class, Jiangsu learned what it means to be impenetrable. Ravenclaw Dean Professor Fluffy is an enlightened, funny and respectable professor. In the first few spell classes, Professor Fluffy explained the effect of the wand swing and the pronunciation of the spell on the spell very thoroughly, which benefited Jiangsu a lot. After class, Jiangsu often consulted Professor Fluffy about the similarities and differences between the East and West spells with the same effect. Professor Fluffy was very interested in this and analyzed these spells carefully with Jiangsu. Professor Flitwick's profound knowledge of magic spells, coupled with Jiangsu's approach to analyzing problems that is different from that of the Western magical world, made the two of them cooperate very harmoniously. In such extracurricular overtime work, both of them have benefited a lot. The most prominent performance is that Jiangsu's level of curse has soared. Herbal medicine is also a class that Jiangsu likes. With his talent in farming and vegetable cultivation, Jiangsu's performance in this class was praised by Professor Sprout. But as the course progressed, Professor Sprout began to be wary of Jiangsu. The reason lies in the questions Jiangsu often asks Professor Sprout. Can these questions be eaten? Tasty? How to eat? Occupies a large part. This made Professor Sprout put a no edible sign next to the banned herbs. Jiangsu also gave Professor Sprout some rat fruit, ghost vine, and ambergris seeds, which made Professor Sprout ecstatic. The history of magic is basically a lesson for students to supplement their sleep. After Jiangsu found out that he could pass the exam by sorting out a chronology of historical events before the exam, he also joined the army of supplementary sleep, or in the classroom write homework for other subjects. After the magic history class, Jiangsu, who was full of sleep, would pester Professor Binz to tell him some legends and secret history about Hogwarts school. Finally, Jiangsu confirmed the existence of the legend of the Chamber of Secrets. Astronomy class is the one that Jiangsu hates most because it takes up his precious sleep time. And Harry Potter, who did not want to be named, hated the potions lesson he hated, but Jiangsu didn't hate him. Professor Snape's preference for Slytherin and his dislike of Harry Potter because his childhood sweetheart's son is not his own have nothing to do with the students of Ravenclaw. In Jiangsu, according to the Chemical Laboratory Safety Management System, the Potions Class Safety Management System and the Self-Inspection Management Standards for the Potions class were sorted out and taught to Ravenclaw after his classmates. Accidents such as explosions in the Potions class were basically insulated from Ravenclaw. After half a month of trial and found that the effect was significant, Jiangsu handed over the improved Potion Class Safety Management System and Potion Class Self-Inspection Management Regulations to Professor Snape, earning money for Ravenclaw College a lot of points. After class, Jiangsu also went to Professor Snape. Jiangsu came up with a formula of a fire-resistant potion for clothing that was half bottlenecked and approached Professor Snape. Reading www.yuyuganshu.com hopes Professor Snape can help improve this formula. Professor Snape took a week to perfect the formula, and then shared the patent of the formula with Jiangsu. In the defense against the dark arts class, Jiangsu had to use the expansion function on his robe. After inserting a card into a bag in the robe, he could not smell it within 3 meters of the robe as long as he entered the magic power. Disgusting smell of garlic. As Professor Quirrell of the Boss of the Year, Jiangsu was not in the mood to communicate with him too much, but asked him once if the vampire he met in Romania was called Remilia Scarlet. Jiangsu also discovered that 100% of the big scarf given to him by Professor Killuo, who claimed to be an African prince, was wholesale from Yu, a small commodity city. In the first metamorphosis class, Jiangsu made the school's biggest joke of the year. Knowing that Professor McGonagall is a very strict professor, the students from Ravenclaw College and Hufflepuff College came to the classroom early. When Jiangsu came to the classroom, he saw that Professor McGonagall was not there, and he found a cat sitting on the podium. He took out a small dried fish from his treasure bag and walked to the podium to tease the cat. Then Jiangsu was in the cat's face. I saw an expression of disgust on my face. Seeing that the dried fish is not effective on the cat, Jiangsu took out a funny cat stick, and then Jiangsu saw the expression of MDZZ on the cat's face. Seeing that these tactics that usually amused Mrs. Loris were ineffective, Jiangsu wanted to stretch out his hand to scratch the cat's chin, but was blocked by the cat's paw. It's time for class at this time. Then Jiangsu finished the transfiguration class in a trembling of 30 Hz. Actually, Jiangsu really wanted to ask Professor McGonagall, what would happen if uranium-235 was transformed into barium and krypton by transformation? However, considering whether Professor McGonagall knows uranium, barium, and krypton, and his recent attempt to molest Professor McGonagall with a small fish and cat stick, he is still in an awkward state, so he had to give up the idea of consulting Professor McGonagall. Later, Jiangsu wrote this idea to Mr. Zhao for advice. Mr. Zhao's reply was only 2 sentences: don't seek death. If you want to find death, you can find it in the UK. Ever since Jiangsu had beaten up Pippi Ghost again, Hogwarts Administrator Filch has shown great kindness to Jiangsu. Jiangsu, who has been educated as a successor to communism for 2 lifetimes, and who has gotten 3 good students every year in his life, will naturally not be kicked by a monster to deliberately violate the school rules. Therefore, between him and Filch there is no contradiction. Plus Jiangsu is a cat who likes to tease cats. Under Jiangsu's offensive, Mrs. Loris has already become very affectionate with Jiangsu. One day after dinner, Jiangsu, who was returning to the common room, saw Mrs. Loris lying on her armor in the corridor. After teasing the cat with a few dried fish, Jiangsu picked up the cat and sent it back to Filch's office. After knocking on the door and entering the office, Jiangsu saw Filch sitting at the table, staring at a quill on the table. Now Jiangsu has a headache when he sees the quill pen. Jiangsu said that writing with this pen is simply torture. Fortunately, before Jiangsu came to the UK, Jiangsu's father gave Jiangsu a Hero brand fountain pen awarded to him by the army, otherwise he would have to send the trustee to buy a few boxes of fountain pens. In addition, the parchment paper used for homework, Sue is not used to it. Fortunately, a box of A4 paper has been prepared in advance in the treasure bag, which is enough for ordinary use without saving. Mr. Filch, what are you looking at? Jiangsu asked while putting down the cat. Good evening, dear Jiang. Filch replied, I suspect this quill is a magical object. Jiangsu thought for a while, took out a fist-sized crystal ball and placed it on the table, and pressed the feather pen under the crystal ball. This crystal ball has the same function as the jade bib that Jiangsu's grandfather gave Jiangsu to test his magic. Both are used to test the magic of people and objects, as long as they touch the target to be tested. The reason why the crystal ball was made is because the manufacturer intends to open up the European and American markets and produced a batch of products for Jiangsu to bring to promote it. Jiangsu controlled his magic power when he took out the crystal ball, so the crystal ball did not shine. When the crystal ball was placed on the feather pen, a faint white light spot appeared in the crystal ball, and then the light spot formed a small white light ball that slowly rotated. There is no doubt that this feather pen is a magical item. Jiangsu explained to Filch, when the crystal ball touches the item, it will automatically check whether it has magical fluctuations. The crystal ball is light. The brightness represents the amount of magic power contained in the item. The speed of the light ball's rotation represents the flow speed of the magic power. It is necessary to know that the flow speed of the magic power is directly proportional to the power of the spell contained in the magic item. Moreover, the crystal ball also contains evil spells. The alarm function: if the magic item contains evil spells, the crystal ball will emit a red light, and it will also emit an alarm sound and vibration. After listening to Jiangsu's introduction, Filch's eyes staring at the crystal ball almost shined. I can give you this crystal ball. After Jiangsu finished speaking, Filch raised his head fiercely and looked at Jiangsu in surprise. Of course, you can also confiscate it from me, as long as you don't deduct points for Ravenclaw. Jiangsu joked with Filch. Send samples for promotion, and whoever sends the samples is particular. If you give the crystal ball to other students, the result will be 3 minutes of heat. If it is given to the professor, the end of the crystal ball will be shelved. If it is given to dumb Filch, then he will inevitably take the crystal ball to track down the student's contraband, so that the entire school will know the crystal ball, and the time will last until Filch retires. No. Jiang, of course it will not be confiscated. Filch exclaimed, I will explain to Professor Dumbledore, the school will pay for it. As you wish, Mr. Filch. Jiang Su replied. After getting Jiang Su's reply, Filch reached out and picked up the crystal ball on the table. Suddenly, the crystal ball in Filch's hand emitted a dazzling white light, and Filch was so scared that he loosened the crystal ball and dropped it to the ground. Fortunately, the crystal ball has a design of anti-fall reinforcement when it is produced, otherwise it must be broken. Jiang Su's face is. Looking at Filch, the crystal ball just now clearly detected that Filch's body can be said to have touched the powerful edge of magic. In the last Life's novels, Filch was a dumb canon who couldn't make magic. Now he is obviously a powerful wizard. But in this period of time has never heard anyone say that Filch used magic. Could it be that he hides his true power? If he hides his strength, it makes sense. Dumbledore has a dumb gun in the school to take care of discipline. Isn't he a dark game of Dumbledore? I now know whether it will be Dumbledore's extinguish the mouth. It is also possible that Filch, because of his early experiences, such as not bullying the young and poor, hides his strength to Hogwarts as a sweeping monk? Then will he stop his mouth? In just a few breaths, Jiang Su made up the outline of a novel with 3 or 4 instincts on the water. Jiang, this crystal ball was just. Filch stared at the crystal ball on the ground and asked Jiang Su in surprise. Mr. Filch, I didn't expect you to be such a powerful wizard. Jiang Su said as he picked up the crystal ball on the ground, and then input a magic power of the average level of an average first-year freshman into the crystal ball. Holding a crystal ball about the brightness of the smartphone screen in the future and handing it to Filch, Jiang Su said, Look, your magic is much stronger than me. Filch stretched out some trembling hands to take the crystal ball, and the crystal ball gleamed again. But, Jiang, you need to know. You may have heard of. I'm actually a dumb gun. Filch said nervously incoherently. Hearing that Filch said nothing like a lie, Jiang Su thought for a moment, and suddenly thought of a possibility. So Jiang Su took out a pair of sunglasses and put it on his face, and then carefully observed the glowing crystal ball in Filch's hand. Filch looked nervously at Jiang Su, who was carefully observing the crystal ball. He did not dare to let out the atmosphere, for fear of disturbing Jiang Su. Soon, Jiang Su raised his head and handed the sunglasses to Filch, asking him to observe the light spots inside the crystal ball when he was in his hand, and then compare the light spots of the crystal ball when checking other Rubik's Cube items. It didn't take long for Filch, who had finished Jiang Su's order, to restore his calmness and sit in front of the table again. When in my hand, the light spot does not move. But when checking the magic item and in your hand, the light spot is rotating. Filch said to Jiang Su, Jiang, this is that I can't use magic. The reason? For example, magic power is like water. When you cast magic power flows out like water. And your current magic power is like ice cubes, you can't mobilize it. If the external stimulus is not enough, it's like a hammer can't hit. It's broken ice, so there's no way to cast magic. Jiang Su said, the reason for this situation is usually caused by a violent magic riot. And you said that you could not use magic since you were a child. This is probably the case. It was caused by the first magical riot when I was young. Is there a solution? Filch asked nervously. I have ideas to solve the problem, but I need the help of Professor Dumbledore. Jiang Su said. The quirky personality of Filch, in Jiang Su's view, is the result of long-term discrimination against dumb guns in the wizarding world. In the wizarding world, wizards regard dumb artillery as the most serious disabled person. A person in the wizarding world lacks hands, feet, or even mental problems is not a big problem for a wizard, but a person without magic is the bottom end of the wizard's contempt chain. In the world of wizards who believe in dragon and phoenix and the highest bloodline, the strong genes of wizards make the descendants of wizards basically all wizards. And when the offspring of a wizard is someone who despises the bottom end of the chain, then the wizarding world will think that this wizard is either forgiving or questioning his pedigree. The latter is the greatest insult to traditional wizards. Filch, who grew up in such an environment, is bound to be discriminated from all aspects, and the long-term discrimination, his admiration for wizards and his chagrin for himself, have caused his psychological distortion. Reading www.uuganshu.com. When he has gained certain power in Hogwarts with a distorted psychology, he will inevitably retaliate twice on the little wizards who represent the group of wizards who discriminated against him in the past. Freshmen who just entered school are in the most bearish stage of a child, and they are born to be rebellious to various rules and regulations. Therefore, the contradiction between freshmen and Filch is inevitable. With the intensification of the struggle between the two sides without a trace of compromise over the years, and the word of mouth and fermentation of the students' bad reviews of Filch over the years, opposing Filch has become the political correctness among the Hogwarts students. Chi also intensified his struggle with the students. The prefect and the chairman of the student union, who are also the administrators of order, may understand this, but as a member of the student class, it is impossible for them to stand on the opposite side of the majority of students. But think about it, a bunch of bear kids with extraordinary powers in Hogwarts, it is a good choice to have a villain to manage them. Presumably Dumbledore and the Hogwarts school board support this. It can be seen from the fact that my dad is Malfoy, the little Malfoy who stays true to his mouth all day long, was thrown into the Forbidden Forest by Filch, and the old Malfoy did not act against Filch at all. After Jiangsu and Filch met, Jiangsu never discriminated against Filch at all. From daily conversations to even a look and expression, Jiangsu not only did not discriminate at all, but also gave Filch respect as a school administrator. In the past, it seemed that only Dumbledore had treated Filch like this in school, so Filch was totally devoted to Dumbledore. How other professors don't know about Filch, but Hagrid's attitude towards Filch, who has a long beard and a long beard, may be able to get a glimpse of it. It's serious to say that Filch's death to Jiangsu is a confidant died, but it is still possible for both parties to treat others with sincerity. In the principal's office, Dumbledore played with the crystal ball like a kid who got a new toy, inputting magic power into the crystal ball, and putting the crystal ball on the magical object on the table. During the period, I took a strange object and placed it on the crystal ball. The crystal ball immediately sent out a red light, a huge alarm sound and a violent vibration, which shocked Filch, who was reporting to him. Dumbledore listened to Filch's report, motioned him to sit for a cup of tea, and then a honey cake, and then looked at Jiangsu who was sitting aside drinking tea and eating snacks. Mr. Jiang, I think your analysis is correct. Thank you very much for everything you have done to Argus. It is my negligence and incompetence that has caused Argus to suffer for so many years. What Dumbledore said to Jiangsu made Filch excited. Jiangsu thought to himself, if Dumbledore told Filch at this time that Voldemort was on the back of Quirrell's head, and then handed him 10 kilograms of C4, Filch would definitely rush over and die with Quirrell, and said maybe Harry Potter can end 1 or 2 episodes ahead of schedule. No thanks, Mr. Filch is a conscientious administrator. It is my honor to be able to help him. Mr. Jiang, do you have any comments or suggestions on Argus treatment? Jiangsu thought for a while and said the answer that he had considered. I have seen records of several similar cases in the family's library. The records call these symptoms. Well, translated into English is magic. Ice. This is not Jiangsu bragging. The Jiangsu family is good at elixirs. There are many rare cases and treatments recorded in the family books. If it weren't for the regional differences between the eastern and western medicinal plants and animals, and the two sides' descriptions of the medicines were not a systematic one, even Jiangsu and Snape tried to analyze the differences between the eastern and western magical medicines at the same time. Only one fire retardant agent made of common magic minerals was analyzed, otherwise Jiangsu, who had a long history, could hang on the potion to beat his classmates who were 2 grades higher than him. In the technique of refining potions, Jiangsu has almost beaten all the students in the school. The Potions Class Safety Management System and the Potions Class Self-Inspection Management Regulations compiled by Jiangsu were even more important to Snape and added 30 points to the Eagle Academy, an unprecedented addition. After Neville sent himself and his classmates to the school infirmary in a potions class, Snape said that if Neville can memorize these two things and observe them, then there will be no one in the Lion's House in the potions class will be injured, and then ordered Harry to be responsible for making Neville carry these two things. Therefore, Dumbledore, who knew that Jiangsu had a good performance in potions, asked Jiangsu for his opinion. To heal the magic ice is like turning the ice into a stream of water. To make the still magic power move, Jiangsu continued. The magic power in the body of a normal wizard is constantly in motion. As long as the static magic power is given a huge impetus, the originally static magic power starts to run, and then with proper magic practice, the magic power can quickly return to a normal wizard. Like that. And the most critical part of the treatment is the driving force that pushes the entire magic power into operation at once. If the driving force is small, it will not work, and if the driving force is too large, it will cause irreversible damage to the body. The cured cases recorded in my family are basically the use of a potion that can accelerate the operation of magic power. This potion is also a kind of poison. The role of this poison is to make the poisoned wizard's whole body magical. The controlled acceleration of the operation causes the magic to get out of control. So while taking this potion, you must also prepare an antidote and a medicine to treat human damage. I suggest that Professor Snape and Mrs. Pomfrey can be invited to participate in the treatment of Mr. Filch. When the topic changed, Jiangsu didn't take the opportunity to sell his own medicine, but instead sold his personal affection to Hogwarts. For Dumbledore, the #1 wizard in Europe, Snape, a potion expert in Europe's top sequence, and Madame Pomfrey, the largest hidden boss in Hogwarts, the most precious thing is not how to do it in details, and ideas on how to solve the problem. As long as there is a general direction, the details of solving the problem will not be a problem for them at first. If Hogwarts can master the treatment for this dumb gun through this treatment of Filch, then the tangible and intangible benefits that Hogwarts will obtain in the magic world will be very huge. And these benefits are a bit tasteless to the current Jiangsu and the Chinese alchemist community behind Jiangsu. For Jiangsu, at most, he will get a Merlin medal. He didn't plan to mix in Europe in the future, and he returned to China with the Merlin medal and couldn't get points for the college entrance examination. After other alchemists figured out why Jiangsu was awarded the Merlin medal, they only laughed and said that this guy would go to a foreigner who could be cured by a tertiary hospital. If you sell medicine in the name of the Chinese alchemist world, it is likely to be resisted by the conservative and xenophobic European magic world. Even if it is unclearly resisted, reading www.yuyuganshu.com will deliberately delay the process. Maybe it is Liberty's son went to school and never finished the process. But if you sell this income as a favor to Hogwarts, who has extended an olive branch to the Chinese alchemist community, Hogwarts will naturally pay a good price, and it will be a win-win situation for all parties. The veteran Dumbledore obviously wanted to understand the doorway in an instant. You don't need to say anything like this. Dumbledore smiled and added a lot of desserts to Jiangsu. In this way, he told Jiangsu, "Brother, I understand." Snape and Madame Pomfrey were soon called by Dumbledore. Dumbledore told the two of Filch's situation and Jiangsu's treatment ideas. After thinking about it, Snape and Madame Pomfrey nodded one after another to indicate that this is possible. Snape said that the corresponding matching potion will take a certain amount of time to develop. Mrs. Pomfrey stated that he would formulate corresponding adjuvant treatment and emergency plans based on Professor Snape's potion. Dumbledore immediately decided to set up a special research and treatment team for magic ice disease at Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry. Team Leader, Albus Dumbledore Advisor and Researcher, Jiangsu Deputy Team Leader, Severus Snape Deputy Team Leader, Mrs. Bobby Pomfrey Researcher, Argus Filch. The first plenary meeting of the group held on-site passed the following resolutions. 1. Starting tomorrow, at 7 o'clock every night, all team members will gather in the potions classroom to conduct related research and work under research. 2. Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry approved 1,000 gallons as the first phase of research funding. 3. The team will increase the number of personnel according to the specific situation. 4. It's late now, and it's time for Jiangsu, a student, to go back to sleep. At breakfast the next day, Jiangsu was sitting at the dining table in the Hogwarts dining hall, mixing the milk cereal in the bowl with a spoon in one hand, and stuffing a sandwich in his mouth with a sandwich in the other. Jiangsu wants to finish breakfast as soon as possible every day, otherwise he will have no appetite for breakfast after the owl that delivers the letter arrives in a while. When Jiangsu finished his last mouthful of milk cereal, the owl rain came. Today is Saturday, and it is the agreed date that Jiangsu receives a letter from China. The letters between Jiangsu and Huaxia naturally cannot be sent by the owl directly from Huaxia. At a distance of tens of thousands of kilometers, it is probably time for the owl to fly down. Now Jiangsu's letters are forwarded through the embassy in the UK. After the letter is sent from China to the embassy through the diplomatic channel, the relevant staff in the embassy will forward the letter to Hogwarts through an owl. The same goes for Jiangsu's letter back to China. The letter sent to Jiangsu today suddenly became the focus of the Hogwarts cafeteria. Previously, Jiangsu's mail was a large craft paper bag. In addition to the letters from Jiangsu and his family, classmates, and Zhao Lao, there were newspapers and magazines such as People's Daily, Reference News and Weapon Knowledge. And today, 7 or 8 owls hung a huge suitcase and flew towards Jiangsu. Jiangsu shook his hand after popping out the magic wand. A gust of wind blew from the top of the magic wand and steadily caught the suitcase that the owls had thrown down. The suitcase fell gently on the dining table in front of Jiangsu. Jiangsu opened the suitcase and saw that the box whose internal space was expanded by the spell was filled with things. Jiangsu first picked up a box placed in the most conspicuous position and found that it was a box of moon cakes. Jiangsu just remembered that the Mid-Autumn Festival is coming soon. Handed the mooncake in his hand to Jiangqiu who was sitting aside, and Jiangsu continued to check the contents of the box. After finding there was no problem, he left the canteen with the box. Jiangsu inspected the box in the dining hall for Dumbledore who was sitting above, and said that the things in my box were all normal things, and I would not come to Hogwarts with strange things. Jiangsu took the box back to the dormitory and took out his personal belongings, and then took the box to the room on the top of another tower of Hogwarts Castle. Jiangsu handed Dumbledore the application report for transforming his dormitory into a reading room early in the morning. The application report was quickly approved. Dumbledore agreed to the establishment of the reading room, but rejected the suggestion that the reading room should be located in Jiangsu's dormitory. Instead, an empty room occupying the top of the tower was assigned to Jiang. Asahi is used as a reading room. Xiaosu, where are you going? As soon as Jiangsu walked to the common room, he met Jiangqiu who had just come out of the stairs of the girls' dormitory. Jiangsu patted the box floating around, and replied, I'm going to set up the reading room. Jiangsu had asked Jiangqiu about the reading room before. In the corridor, Jiangsu and Jiangqiu were talking about the Mid-Autumn Festival the next day while dragging their boxes. As soon as the two turned a corner, they found 3 students approaching on the opposite side. The blonde student led by was taken aback when he saw Jiangsu, then lowered his head and led the other 2 students to hurried past Jiangsu. It's Malfoy and his 2 followers, Ben Crabbe and Gore. Malfoy seems to be afraid of you. After Malfoy and the others walked away, Jiangqiu asked Jiangsu curiously. Probably it was Malfoy's father who told him something. Ma's time in China was not a pleasant one. Jiangsu told Jiangqiu about the causes and consequences of Malfoy's being caught planting sugarcane on the labor camp. Jiangqiu was taken aback. Maybe it's because they didn't read the almanac when they went out today. They had just walked a flight of stairs and entered a corridor, and they met 2 more acquaintances. Ah! Tu Zhang, are you dating? A red-haired student shouted. You still have your luggage, are you going to elope? Another red-haired student who looked exactly the same yelled. Jiangsu gave the twins angrily, popped out the wand and waved, the twins' hair lit up a half-meter-high red flame. The twins suddenly hugged their heads and scurried in the hallway, like two running candles, and they screamed that can start people out of nightmares while running. Suddenly, one of the twins fell in front of Jiangsu and the other twin suddenly jumped up, picked up the fallen brother with one hand, and grabbed the other's hand with the other. George, cough cough, George. One of the twins who fell on the ground yelled weakly. Fred. Hold on. Fred. You will get better soon. George, I know I can't do it anymore. It seemed that Fred Weasley's statement was fulfilled, and the flame on his head was slowly weakening. No. Fred. George, please help me tell our father, mother, brother, and sister, I love them. No. You will get better, Fred. I want you to tell them when you get better. George cried out crying. George, cough cough, I finally have a wish, cough 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 cough, please, please, bury me under the big tree by the pool in our garden. Fred closed his eyes after speaking. The flame on his head also went out at the same time. After the flame went out, there was a burst of white smoke, and the white smoke condensed in the air into the appearance of Fred. Slap! 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 There was a round of applause in the corridor. The twin brothers on the ground stood up and saluted the audience nearby. It's a wonderful performance. Professor Flavie, who passed by when the twins first started the performance, said while applauding, it's a beautiful fake fire curse, it looks like a real flame. Have a nice weekend everyone. After saying that, Professor Flavie took out his magic wand and pointed it at the twins a little bit, cleared the dust from the twins and left. And on the way to the library, I found Harry, Hermione, and Ron who were rushed by the fire. Reading www.yuyuganshu.com. Harry and Hermione hadn't recovered from the shock just now, they had just rushed forward if they hadn't been caught by Professor Flavie who had arrived first. Ron, who knew what twins were like since he was a child, saw the strangeness at a glance and chose to eat melons and watch the show. I want to write to my father to plant a tree by the pond, I hope it's still too late. Do you love everyone in the family, but you don't love me? Ron said a little bit grimly. Those who care about details are fools, my dear brother, said Fred, who had lifted the curse on his head. Sue, Filch has a crystal ball that can identify magic items recently. I heard you gave it to him. George said. Jiangsu just watched the performance of the twins, and felt a little emotional, because he knew that in the plot, Fred was killed in the battle with the Death Eaters at the end. If you can help at that time, please help. Everyone is a friend. Jiangsu thought. The school bought the crystal ball from me to ration Mr. Filch. Jiangsu said to the twins, if you want to help me set up the reading room, I will each give you one. No problem. The twins replied in unison. Jiang, what reading room is it? Hermione on the side asked. Professor Dumbledore agreed with my application and agreed that I used the magic books brought from China to establish a reading room in Hogwarts, open to professors and students throughout the school. Jiangsu briefly explained. The three brothers Hermione and Weasley's eyes lit up. Hermione is purely like reading books. The three Weasley brothers are from a wizard family and they know the importance of magic books in the wizarding world. And Harry was silly on the side.